good day, class. I hope you're doing well and safe. So, how's your day today?
Good, ma'am.
Okay,
Fine,
that's
ma'am.
good. Okay, that's good to know. So, this is all about teaching poetry and dramatic poetry. All right. So, before we present to you the lesson, please lend us your ears throughout the discussion because you might be having a short quiz on the latter part of the lesson. So, but before that, let me present to you our objectives for today. So, at the end of the lesson, the student should be able to first uh, understand the different types of poetry and determine their distinctive features. Second, anyone from the class who would like to read?
Ma'am Patrick Cruz po. Construct their own poem based on the type of poetry assigned to them.
Thank you for that. How about the last objectives?
Ma'am,
Objective?
Lorraine Gonzaga po. Reflect on the importance of poetry in our society.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, may I give the floor to our next um, speaker, Sir Patrick Cruz.
Okay, so thank you, Ma'am Mariel. So what's the matter? The next slide, I will be showing you an image that reflects your prior knowledge about our topic. So we have here the next slide. Can someone read this for me, please?
Sir,
Okay, go on.
sir, bucket list dreaming. All the mountains will climb and things I will see.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Anne Lorraine. So we have here bucket list dreaming. As you can see, we have 5 syllables in the first line. And if you compare to the second line, we have 7 syllables. In the third line, 5 syllables. For further explanation to understand what I am saying, we will discuss about our topic. Okay? So I want you to listen carefully because we will give you assignment and quiz later on. For the next slide, we have riddles. I will read it for you. The first one. I am full of holes. I can hold water. What am I? Sponge. In real life, this is a reality wherein if we wash dishes, if we wash dishes, wherein the sponge can grip the water, it means it becomes to reality. But of course, you have to be aware and to analyze what is the context of the message. Okay, so I will pass to Ma'am Mariel for further explanations.
Wait for a moment. Okay, so there you go. So we have three main genres. And what are those? Anyone from the class who can give or who can recall the three main genres of poetry? Okay, so we have first we have the lyric poetry. So what is it again when we say lyric poetry? Of course, as the term would imply, lyric poetry definitely has a lyrics and it is a song-like type of literature. So it is highly musical and it expresses the personal expressions of the writers of the lyrics. And also, the lyric poetry enhances our moods, especially when we are bored and when we feel like unmotivated, just like listening to music. It can help to arouse our feelings. So the second genre of poetry is the narrative poetry. Again, the term would imply we have here the word narrative. Of course, we have here the narrator who narrates the story itself as compared to the lyric poetry. So it in narrative poetry, it is more lengthy because it includes epic and long stories. And the third one is the genre of poetry. So, I mean the dramatic poetry. So the in dramatic poetry would encompass dramatic monologue, drama, and verse. So in narrative poetry, the narrator is narrating what is happening, while in dramatic poetry, you are immediately lead to the main character through emotions or behavior. So and poetry itself and its genre are essential because poetry is a personal type of writing where words flow and carry you along the realms of beautiful thought. Okay, so we all know that reading and writing poetry is definitely one way for us to express ourselves and to uh, to reflect, and to ponder on our experiences, and also to enrich our lives. So, through it be told, poetry is an inevitable part of our lives. From the music that we enjoy, from the drama that we usually watch, these are all types of poetry. And we can't help but to conclude that without poetry, somehow life would be dull and boring. And so poetry uses different techniques to make it more appealing to the readers. So next slide, please. Okay, so there you go. Now moving on to the literary devices. When we say literary devices, these are the techniques that the writer or the writers use to create a special and pointed effect in their writing to convey information or to help readers understand their writing on a deeper level. So there are 15 most impactful literary devices that can help shape novels or writings. So the first one is diction. So diction, anyone who would like to read the definition?
Mom,
Ma'am,
please.
Okay, yes, Miss Rain and Lorraine.
ma'am. Ma'am, diction is not the only choice of words or phrase in writing. It can include the mood, attitude, dialect, and style of writing.
Okay, so for example, the certain writers in the modern way and age use archaic terms such as die, uh, the, and wherefore to imbue for example, in in a story or in a piece entitled um, particular piece of Shakespearean mood to their work. So this is not only just as you have mentioned earlier, this is not just the choice of words, but it concludes the mood, attitude, dialect, and the style of the writing. Okay, the next one is second, allegory. So it is a story that is used to represent a more general message about real life or historical issues or events, or sometimes to express and comment on the society. So, for example, the um, George Orwell's dystopian or dystopian um, entitled "The Animal Farms," which is about the Russian Revolution. So, if you would notice, there is a certain uh, the story is revolves around. I know it revolves the historical issues of that particular revolution, or that is also applied in the piece. Okay, so let's proceed to the number three, which is the colloquialism. So it is the use of informal language and slang, and it is often used by authors to highlight the sense of realism to their characters and dialogue. So let's say, for example, saying, "Hey, what's up, man?" This is the piece of dialogue where an example of colloquialism. This is an example of colloquialism since it uses common everyday words and phrases, namely the mentioned phrase like "what's up" and the word "man." Okay, number 4, euphemism. It is number 4. Sorry, next slide, please. Okay, so euphemism is an indirect word or expression used in a place or another word or phrase that is considered harsh, blunt, vulgar, or unpleasant. So it is when a indirect word or expression is used when, especially when the phrase or word is harsh, blunt, vulgar, or unpleasant. So like, let's say, for example, "I'm so sorry," the phrase "I'm so sorry," but um, he didn't make it. If you would notice, the phrase "didn't make it" is a more polite and less blunt way of saying that someone has died. Okay, so next, number 5, flashback. So flashback is this device is often used to give the reader more background information and details about specific characters, events, plots, points, or plot points, and so on. So it is an interruption in a narrative that depicts events that has already occurred. Okay, so it's either before the present time or before the time at which the narration takes place. So this device, as I have mentioned, this device is it focuses on the reader's background information or the details of an specific character or events. So let's say, for example, most of the novel, like by Emily Bronte, entitled Wuthering Heights, is a flashback from the point of view of the housekeeper, if you are familiar with this piece. So Nellie, in here, Nellie narrates narrates Catherine's show as she engaged in a conversation with a visitor named Lockwood. Okay, number 6, foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is when the author places elements within the writing that gives clues about what will happen in the future of the story. So it is when the author indirectly hints through things such as dialogues, description, or characters' actions who's to come later in the story. So for example, let's say you are reading a fictionalized account of Amelia Earhart. So before she embarks on her plane ride, if you're familiar with this, a friend says to her the phrase "be safe." Wouldn't you, or wouldn't want you getting lost? So, or worse. So this line would be an example of foreshadowing because it implies that something bad or worse will happen to Earhart. Okay, next slide, please. Number 8. Number 7. Number 7. Okay, so number 7, I'm sorry, number 7, juxtaposition. So juxtaposition is comparing and contrasting of two or more different ideas or characters. Or also, okay, number 8, allusion. Allusion is when author makes an indirect reference to a figure, place, events, or idea originating from outside the text. Wait for a moment. I have, okay. So allusion is a literary device that is when an author makes an indirect reference to a figure, as I mentioned earlier, a figure, event, or idea originating from outside the text. So it is used to connect with your readers by referencing something in your writings to be for the readers to be familiar with, especially in the real world that you're talking in your writing. So for example, having the sentence, careful now, you don't want to go opening Pandora's box. So it is a great way to bring something from the real world, which is the Pandora's box, the, the legend and the story from your real life into novel. So in here, the allusion is Pandora's box because this is a reference to a real life elements and it's considered as an no allusion. Okay, number 9, the alliteration. Alliteration is a series of words or phrases that almost all starts with the same sound. Okay, so it is these sounds are typically consonants to give more stress to that syllable. So you'll often come across alliteration in poetry or titles of the book. So let's say, for example, the Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So in this tongue twister, the P or P sound is repeated at the beginning of all major words. Okay, number 10, imagery. This device is often used by authors or writers to help the reader visualize parts of the story by creating a strong mental picture. Okay, so as the name suggests, is create an image in your reader's mind. So it is when the author describes a scene, thing, or idea so that it appeals to your senses. Of course, the taste, smell, sight, touch, or hearing. So this device is often used to help the reader visualize the parts of the story by creating or paint a clear picture in the minds of the reader. So for example, here's an example of imagery taken from William Wordsworth's famous poem. Um, I wandered lonely as a cloud. So let me read the piece to you for you. So when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils beside the lakes or beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So if you would notice, there are some um, description or scene or thing that would also appeal to your senses. Okay, so number 11, next slide, please. Okay, so number 11, personification. So personification is used to help reader create a clearer mental picture of the scene or of object being described. So it is where you give human-like qualities to non-human elements. So using the personification in your writings, it is very useful as it brings new elements to your writings because it can allow the readers to or it can allow readers to have a new perception or perspective on how they typically view different things. So, for example, the wind moaned, beckoning me to come outside. So, in this example, the wind is a human, a non human element, which is being described as if it is human. So, there you go. Moving on to the number 12, metaphors and similes. So, metaphor or simile. So, metaphors and similes are basically comparisons used in order to help your reader understand a little bit better of your writing. So, it is used when the ideas, actions, or objects are being described in a non-literal terms. So in short, it is when the author compares one thing to another. So the two things being described, let's say for example, are usually uh, share something in common but are unalike in order to or in all other respect. So it brings you close to the character. So a metaphor is basically things that are not alike being compared to the replace being compared by replacing the word. So an example of metaphor would be like this. Uh, sh- the sentence. So she was drowning in a sea of her own despair. Whereas a simile is kind of more direct comparison by using the words like or as. So here's the example. She is as vicious as a lion. So since the this statement uses the word as to make a comparison between she and a lion, it is considered as a simile. Okay. Number 13, for a moment. Sorry for the noise. Okay, number 13, the onomatopoeia. So onomatopoeia is a word or a group of words that represents a sound or used to describe a sound. So as it says here, it is a word that represents sound or create more of an impact for the reader that helps hit more of their senses. So for example, the word bang, buzz, boom, broom, whoosh, zoom, zip, and etc. So those are typically italized, and the reason why we should use these in our writings is that it is impactful and it hits, like as I have said um, a while ago, it hits the senses of the reader. Okay, number 14. Number 14, next slide, please. Okay, symbolism. So in symbolism, it refers to the use of an object, figure, event, situation, or other idea in a written work to represent something else, something else. So it is the use of situation or something else. So in order to symbolize something more bigger, this could be um, an idea first or a concept. Yes. So an example of this is the crows being compared or being used to symbolize bad omen, uh, which also predict death or tragedy coming. Okay, number 15, tone. Tone is the writer or narrator's attitude towards a subject. So tone is the narrator's thoughts, feelings, or opinions about what is going on or how what's they're saying is written. So this literary device has the power to shape the entire book. So for example, if you want to catch a reader off guard when something is traumatic or intense that is happening in the story, you can keep the tone light instead, or a humorous one before the event can increase the sensation or shock or shock sensation of shock and tension in the story. So you can guide your readers. Also, you can guide your readers right into the emotion you want to for them to feel in particular sense. I mean, scene or part of the story. So that would be all, I guess. May I introduce to you Miss Ma'am Anne Lorraine Gonzaga to discuss the fun poetry.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Mariel. So, hello students, I am Ma'am Ann, and I do hope that you're having a good time today. Cheer up, because I'm guessing that you'll like the topic that I'm about to discuss, considering it has something to do with a fun and entertaining way of writing literature. I know that some of you find writing literary pieces boring and difficult, so we will try to divert from that way of thinking using the types of poetry that we will tackle. So, without further ado, let's now start discussing about fun poetry. So, what is fun poetry? It is a style of poetry which is different from the many other types of more serious verse. It is considered as a unique type of poetry which involves a more creative way of expressing the writer's emotions. Just like the usual serious type of poems, it also covers a broad style and genre, including love poetry, epic poetry, long poetry, and so on. Fun poetry focuses on strong, accurate, and interesting words, which makes the readers feel the writer's emotion and intentions in a more entertaining way. Choosing the right words for their meaning, their connotations, their sounds, even the look of them makes a poem memorable. The words become guides to the feelings that lie between the lines. And next slide, please. So examples of fun poetry are first riddles. So does anyone want to read the slide?
Ma'am,
Okay, please go on.
um, riddles, sometimes called brain teasers. Riddles refer to a broader category of thought-based games. Ma'am.
Example, please.
Example, what is iron on a horse but leather on a man?
Okay, so do you have any idea what's the answer on that statement? Okay, so I think she has no idea about it. So first of all, riddles are sometimes called brain teasers and refer to a broader category of thought-based games. Riddles are just one form of brain teaser alongside crosswords, Sudoku puzzles, and even math problems. So let's proceed to the example. Let's try to understand what this statement means. So, what is iron on a horse but leather on a man? The answer here is shoes. So why shoes? Well, it's because horseshoes are made from metal, but human shoes were traditionally made from leather. So, what it's talking about in the first half of the statement is that the only iron thing that the horses wear as an accessory is their horseshoes, right? Then, what could it be talking about in the last half of the statement if it's talking about the leather thing that a man uses? Well, let's not go further from the clue, it's already given. If horseshoes are for the horses, then shoes are for men. That is how riddles work. You need to think critically and creatively, or sometimes there's even a need for you to dispel the actual facts in order for you to come up with the correct answer and get a hold of what it's really all about. So now let's proceed to the second example. Next slide, please. Okay, limerick. Anyone who wants to read about limerick?
Dr. Cruz, ma'am.
Okay, go on,
Limericks
Mr.
is
Cruz.
a light or humorous verse form of five chiefly anapestic verses, of which lines 1, 2, and 5 are of 3 feet, and lines 3 and 4 are of 2 feet with a rhyme scheme of AABBA.
Please read the example, please.
Example, my dad said there was once a lady who lived to 180. She only ate flies, which she baked into pies. But I think this story, but I think this story is a bit shady.
Okay, so thank you for that, Mr. Cruz. So before we go to the example, let's first understand what limerick is. So limerick is a popular form of short, humorous verse that is often nonsensical and frequently ribald. So what we mean by ribald is indecent. So what we mean, I mean indecent or improper. Okay, so it's already up to your imaginations where they will take you on how far the indecency of a limerick's content could go. So aside from the feature of being a humorous verse, the first line, second line, and fifth lines in a limerick and in rhyming words, while the third and fourth lines must rhyme. The rhythm of a limerick is anapestic, which means two unstressed syllables are followed by a third stressed syllable. So now let's understand the example. Okay. My dad said there was once a lady who lived to 180. She only ate flies, which she baked into pies. But I think this story is a bit shady. So if you will observe the rhyming pattern of the poem, it can be seen that they properly follow the AABBA rhyming pattern since the word lady, AT, and shady at the first, second, and fifth lines rhyme with each other, while flies and pies at the third and fourth lines also rhyme. As we have just discussed, the said rhyming pattern is an important feature of a limerick. In addition, the poem also has a humorous and playful content, seeing that the meaning of the poem revolves around a 180-year-old lady who eats pies made up of flies, which is really strange and is not believable at all. And the fact that its content is nonsensical can already add to the factors that are being considered when distinguishing limerick poetry. So, the last is haiku. So, haiku is a type of short form poetry which originated from Japan. Traditional Japanese haiku consists of three phrases in a 5-7-5 pattern. Haiku is a lot more complicated than other types of poetry, as it uses just a few words to capture a moment and create a picture in the reader's mind. In other words, it is like a tiny window into a scene much larger than itself. So the given example here is a gentle door, a gentle door knock. Is it winter's cool breeze or a spring as a guest? So first of all, if you will count their syllables, you can see that the first line, which is a gentle door knock, has a 5 syllables. Then the second line, is it winter's cool breeze, follow a 7-syllabic phrase. And lastly, the or a spring as a guest is the same with the first line with 5 syllables. In the haiku piece, even with the use of limited words, the author was able to express his or her opinion about the seasonal breeze being gentle and such, although we really don't know whether the breeze the author was talking about was actually brought by the winter season or the spring season, considering both were mentioned in the poem, not emphasizing what the breeze really is. So that's everything for the fun poetry. For the next topic, my colleague Sir Patrick would be the one to continue the discussion. Sir Patrick?
Thank you, Ma'am Anne Lorraine Gonzaga. So we have here shape poems. So in the slide, as you can see in this share screen, shape poems, also known as concrete poetry. It is a type of poetry that uses some sort of visual presentation to enhance the effect of the poem to the reader. In other words, concrete poetry is a kind of linguistic art in which the way words and letters look is as important as what they mean. Okay, in other definition, it is an arrangement of words on a page into shapes or patterns that reveal an image, such as in calligram. So in the next slide, we have types of concrete poetry. First one, we have outlined poems. It is a visual structure that reflects the subject of the poem that fills in an outlined shape relating to the topic of the poem. As you can see on the example, it is a question mark. So the words itself on the that shows the figure, it is discussing about question mark or the use itself, or ano ba ang gamit ng question mark in our daily lives or into language. For the next slide, second one, we have drawing poems. It defines the uses of lines or words that make the lines of drawing. So as you can see, can you distinguish what is the drawing of this one? This slide, please.
Sir, is it a blue whale?
Yes, that is right. So with the use of words, he drew a whale. Yes. So it also, as you can read, if you can read the slide, the big blue whale is not a fish. You could not keep until a dish. So here he is exploring or experimenting words or distinguishing a whale. So that is for drawing poems. As you can see, kuwang-kuha niya yung whale with the use of letters. Okay, let us move to the next slide. We have Easter Wings by George Herbert, was originally printed sideways on two side-by-side pages. So the title of this piece is Easter Wings. If you want to explore and understand this piece, I would like to recommend you to read and criticize his work. Okay, so the next one we have The Mouse's Tail Wings. In Alice Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, it is the original representation of the poem had the words at the end getting smaller as the tail becomes narrower. As you can see in the example, in the very top, you can still read it, right? So while going down, it's getting smaller and smaller until you cannot read the context itself. So The Mouse's Tail Wings by Carol is the best example for this subject. Okay, let us move to 7 steps in comprehending poetry. First, we have the setup the poem. So write the following words, narrators, setting, and mood. Of course, when you are constructing a story or a poem, you should have draft, right? You have idea what you are making for theme, something like that. Second one, we have always read a poem twice. You need to read the poem twice, sometimes even a third time, and even then. Why? To criticize, okay? Maybe there are words that is better than this word, right? You need to find a synonym that construct a better fitment of the sentence. All right. So the third one, use investigate skills and identify the narrator or speaker of the poem. So you need to look at the narrator like a character in a book. Then you quick recognize the narrator or speaker. The faster it will help you understand the context of the poem. Yes, when you are reading, of course, you are exploring possibilities, or you are predicting the story itself, and you are uh, criticizing who is the antagonist or protagonist in the story. Yes. And the fourth one, identifying the setting. Identifying the setting gives a reader visualization and imagery to the context of literature. So in this number four, uh, when you are reading, you feel the theme itself or the setting. You visualize or imagining the situation that is happening in the story. So that is the delivery of number four. So number five, identify the mood. It is very important for a reader to identify how a character is feeling. This has the reader empathize and connect to a character or a person. We usually feel this when reading a book or anything piece that you want. So in my own opinion, when I'm reading, I can feel the character itself, the story. Why? Because sometimes what is happening in the story is happening to yourself itself. Do you feel me? So it has connections on the story to your daily life. So it is important so that you can also keep up or understand the story itself. Okay, the next one. Summarize the poem. Summarizing the poem in one's own words is a great way to show an understanding of a poem. Yes, that is really true because in your own opinion, tapos ikukumpara mo siya sa iba, of course, there's a conflict. Okay, so to fully understand the poem, you have to make your own words or own idea that that will remember the piece itself. Okay, so po parang naisip ko, if I think of this person, maaalala ko tong pagkain na to, something like that. And the last one, we have put the poem in action by drawing a picture. Put the poem in action by drawing a picture of what they believe is happening. Visualization is essential for comprehension. So, as I mentioned, a good example of this is what? Example, bulb. Okay. When you think of bulb, it's light, opportunities, um, chances, something like that. So that is all for 7 steps in comprehending poetry. So in the future, I hope these 7 steps will strengthen your students' skill with the comprehension of a poem. So let us move to the activity. I will divide you students into 3 groups, the riddles, limericks, and haiku. All of the members of group 1 will construct their own composed riddles. Group 2 members for limericks, and group 3 will be then the group 3 members will be tasked to create their own haiku. So I would like you to send your output on the messenger GC in our subject for the next meeting. Hopefully all of you are done already. So you have 3 days to complete this. You have 3 days to complete this task. Thank you.
Okay, so in addition, please make a short reflection paper consisting of 5 to 8 sentences, which focuses on the significance of poetry in our society in a Word document. You should reflect on what role poetry plays in our lives and how this contributes to the world literature. You can freely decide on the format you want to follow and use whatever font you want to choose. Please send your outputs on our GC before the end of the day. So in addition to these activities, Mom Mariel will provide you a quiz link for you to take later on. Mom Mariel?
Yes, thank you, Mom and Lorraine. All right, class. So this time, you will be having a short quiz consisting of 10 items, and don't worry, it is a multiple choice type of quiz. So please don't forget to enter your name for easy recording. Click the link provided in our chat box and you will go directly to the quiz. Wait for a moment. Do you see my screen, class?
Ma'am, naka-share screen ka na.
Okay. Anyway, your scores here will be recorded. So thank you for your participation, class. Very good and congratulations. So you may now have your um, snacks or dinner, and God bless us all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.